Welcome to a different shapes hut, you guys. And today with me I have Matt, and I'm gonna let Matt take it away and share his story.
Hi, I'm Matt Johnson. I am a hypnotist and neuro linguistic programming coach, which is basically helping people work with the operating system of their brains. I got started in this about 10 years ago. I got a severe brain injury. I was hiking at Point Loma tide pools here in San Diego when I slipped and landed the back of my head on a slab of solid rock. I hit so hard my brain rebounded. It hit the top of my skull, and I twisted the part with above my eyes, my optic nerve, and all that badly. I can't even describe the pain I was in. If you've ever been zapped by electricity and felt that intense pins and needles type feeling, that's what was going on in my head. For several years after that, I was so sensitive to light and sound, I couldn't even be in a room with the lights on. It was just too painful. And, I had a room I nicknamed my dungeon. I had black hefty bags taped over the windows. And basically, in prison, they call it solitary confinement. And, it's definitely not an easy environment. But I did something on day two, sitting in that room that got me out of there. And that was I made a decision. Now, the word decision comes from the Latin root de, which means from, and caedere, which means to cut. I had no clue how I was going to get out of there, but I knew I wouldn't stop until I got out. And so I, started out going the medical route. I had 4 different neurologists. The first one told me, there's nothing I could do for you, but then tries to schedule me for a follow-up visit. I'm, thinking to myself, why would I come back if there's nothing you could do for me? Just, I didn't say that, but just didn't make sense to me. The second one gave me a pill that, maybe worse. I called him the next day, and he gave me another one, made me better, took some of that sting away. And so I said, great, the pain's at least somewhat gone away. Can you help me sleep? Because I was having these brutal downward spirals where the pain would make it harder to sleep, which made the pain worse. And he told me, no, there's nothing I can give you. So on to neuro number 3. And right away, she told me, "Oh yeah, let me give you amitriptyline," and it worked. It did the trick. I'm beyond grateful to my doctors. I would not be where I am without them. The only reason I tell that story is how many people would have stopped with that first one. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I went about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of just going strictly the medical route. I read every medical study there was out there on healing a brain injury. I came up with a 3-page document of everything that helped me, every single treatment, everything from amino acids to hyperbaric oxygen. If anyone listening to this would like a copy of that, let me know. I also gave a presentation of it to the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation, where I go through the method behind each one of those treatments. And I give both away for free. I just, you email me, I'll give you a Google Drive link. But about that time, I realized that I knew more than my neuros did on the tiny little subject of healing a brain injury, which terrified me because I realized that science was not going to get me out of that room. And so I'd been a skeptic my whole life, but I started started saying, what else is out there? And lucky for me, I live in California, so I had a lot of things to choose from. I started getting into energy medicine and things like that. One of the first things I tried was called Reiki. And I told you I had the pins and needles type feeling in my head, that electricity. The best description I can give was she took those pins and needles and kind of made them fly in formation, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
it took that sting away. And I'm like, whoa, I have no idea what you're doing, but please don't stop. So
Yeah.
at the end of that session, I asked her, can you teach me how to do this? And so I spent a few days with her, learned Reiki, and I got into pranic healing, Qigong, civil holistic faith healing, basically anything I could find that helped me. I'd try to just dive in and, learn it. And I started to turn the tide. I did a huge amount of healing over the next couple of years, but I just could not get rid of that light and sound sensitivity. And so at this point, I'm thinking, do I have permanent damage? And so I found a special type of brain scan. Most MRIs just look at the tissue, which doesn't, if you have a brain injury, doesn't really tell you a whole lot. This the scan that I found was called a SPECT, done by Dr. Daniel Amen. It actually maps the electrical activity in the brain. And so I went and got my scan. Long story short, my brain was okay, but areas that were supposed to be dark were lit up like fireworks. And I was diagnosed with PTSD that day.
Oh,
Now,
geez.
I'd had it my entire life, or most of my life, and never even realized it. And if I hadn't gotten the brain injury, I never would have even known, most likely. But at that, I'd known I'd had, severe anxiety issues, and, I'd already tried several talk therapists and meds and things like that. And I knew by that point that wasn't the path for me. And lucky for me, I'd seen the incredible power of hypnosis when it helped my dad quit smoking. He tried to quit for over 30 years, and, pills, patches, gums, you name it, failed every single time until he got hypnotized. After one session, he told me he never even craved cigarettes again. Now, it's one of the toughest addictions there is. Just wiped it right out. And I was also familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, from a guy named Tony Robbins. And Tony famously had a woman that had 152 different personalities, and he was actually able to integrate her right there on the spot in about 45 minutes. That's the power of this stuff. And so, I went to NLP and hypnosis school, wound up getting quadruple certified. Asked every single instructor I had, the exact same question: how do you heal PTSD? And they all tried to help me, but none of them really had the answer. And so I went back to digging, and I spent another 2.5 years just binging, hypnosis and NLP courses. And I finally put together a protocol that I was able to heal myself. And I found my calling in the process. I love this stuff. And, again, the brain injury, I definitely don't want another one, but it gave me an incredible gift, because I was on the wrong path in life until I got it. And it showed me what I'm supposed to be doing. So, long-winded answer to tell me about yourself, but
And that's okay. But I can ask you this. When you say you were on a wrong path in life before the brain injury, what were you doing?
I was in tech, and I did cybersecurity for almost 20 years. And, it was a living. It wasn't, something I really, aspired to be. It just kind of fell on that career path, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people do. And so the injury really gave me no choice but to heal myself.
And so I know you said you have a TBI, but how did you exactly get the TBI? You said you were hiking.
Yes. I slipped and landed my feet came out from under me, and instead of landing on my rear, I landed the back of my head on a side of a rock. Yeah.
Ow.
Yeah. That's what I said.
Did you see stars, or did
Oh yeah,
you black
I
out?
knocked out. When I came to, I physically could not open my eyes for about 20 minutes. And, I got taken to the hospital and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was in bad shape for years after that.
So what would you say now to people that are listening to this, that have new traumatic brain injuries, that are newly injured with a traumatic brain injury?
First thing you have to do is decide. Like I said, when you decide, you cut off any other possibility. Now, I had no clue how I was going to get myself out of there. I just knew I wasn't going to stop until I found the answer. And that took me, several different ways to finally make it back to living my life again. For me, my kids were still fairly small, and I wanted to get back out and be a part of their life. I could hear them outside the door, but I wasn't a dad the way I wanted to be. And that really is what gave me the motivation to keep trying. We'll do more for other people than we will ourselves sometimes. And that was probably the case here.
Yeah.
But it's when you decide like that, that's the difference between, going to that first neurologist and saying, oh, well, he can't help me. There's nothing that can be done versus, all right, you don't have my answer. Who does? You know what I mean? And that's, I asked that question so many times over those years, and, it was never a straight process. It was, a lot of bumps and, bruises along the way, and a lot of, things that didn't work, but until I came up with the system that did.
Now, if um, people want to get that report you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier, how can they get it? Do they go to your website? Do they click on a special link?
Yeah, you can go to my website, and it's the link will be up there.
Yeah. So it's public link. They don't need to sign in. They don't need to do any of that.
I'll tell you what, I will give you a special link for the show notes, so they don't need a sign in or anything
Yeah,
like that. Um,
please.
but would you like me to do it right now?
Um, you can just email. You can just
Okay.
text it to me, and I'll
Okay.
put it
I'll give you
in.
the link to the Google Drive, so nobody has to sign in or anything like that, and they can just access it all they like.
Yeah, because that's amazing that you healed your own brain, and so to this. And when was the injury?
This was 2016.
So do you still feel adverse effects from the injury um, today?
Sometimes, usually as long as I keep my sleep dialed in pretty well, I'm okay. There are some days that I do feel the effects, but they're tiny compared to what they used to be. I would guess I'm probably around 95% healed, something like that.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
And as as we said, go seek medical help. But
Yes.
as Matt said, also you need to decide for yourself.
Be in the driver's seat, but yeah, definitely get the medical help you need. If you get a brain injury, you got to get a CT scan that day. You know what I mean? Just to make sure you don't have a brain bleed or
Yes,
anything like that. But
yes,
yeah, listen to your doctors, but if what they're doing it doesn't work for you, or if you ask them for help and they can't give it to you, then, start looking around for, all right, you don't have my answer. Who does? And
who does?
yeah, yeah.
The power of Google, the power of
Yes. I've Googled many
Facebook,
times. Yeah.
the power of Facebook groups locally. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
down here in Phoenix, Arizona, with the Mayo Clinic 5 minutes away from my house. So
Nice.
yeah, um, if I had a true emergency, I would go to the Mayo Clinic. But yes, sometimes I, people that know me in real life and people that know this podcast know that I have advocates to help me, know that I'm my own advocate. And sometimes I get called impatient, insistent. I get called the terrible patient because I know what I want.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. We have a thing in our culture where, if somebody's got the lab coat and the piece of paper on the wall, what they say goes for
Yeah,
a lot of people. And
yeah, exactly.
the whole reason I told that story is, those people that I went to, they all had the same, basically the same piece of paper, probably from different schools, but they're all neurologists, and they all had different pieces of the puzzle. You know what I mean? The first guy, had never dealt with a brain injury before. That was pretty obvious. Second guy had. The third one, knew a lot more than the first two. So it's listening to your doctors, doing, what's medically necessary always. But, if that's not working, if that's not getting you where you want to go, then you've got to
Listen to
take
your
charge.
gut.
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with something, really big medical challenge, you know what I mean? You've got to take control of it and say, all right, here's where I'm going. Who can get me there? And you just keep going until you find, the right people, the right answers.
It's so funny because I'm dealing with a injury. My leg craps underneath me because I have cerebral palsy,
Yeah.
and I now as a result I want to get a full hip replacement, but in the notes it said patient insisted on a full hip replacement. No, a full hip replacement is the best option, and I knew that from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you have to trust your own gut.
Yes, absolutely. And, it's one of the things here in the States, we're very dialed into Western medicine, and
Yeah.
when you've got an acute type situation like that, you've got a busted hip or something like that.
Yeah.
They're the best game there is. But if you've got something chronic or things like that, I highly encourage people to check out energy medicine. Qigong
Yeah.
is like the fountain of youth. It is phenomenal. Pranic healing, all that. Your body is an electrical device. When the electricity stops running through your body is when you take a dirt nap. And anything that anything that impedes that electricity, which you can get blockages and things like that all the time, it's gonna harm wherever you've got that blockage. And Eastern medicine, very much qigong, pranic healing, even acupuncture. It's all about opening up those they call them meridians. They're basically the electrical lines.
Meridian points.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'd never been into that kind of thing before. I was in desperation mode and tried it, and I was blown away by how much it helped.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was going to say, the body knows how to heal itself.
Yes.
I have many foreign objects in my body. You guys know that by now. But the body knows how to heal itself. And it's interesting because once you put a foreign objects in my body, a little bit of a movement, a little bit of TLC, the body does the rest of the healing. And so the body knows how to heal itself given time, given the appropriate attention.
Mm-hmm.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
AI is changing the game of business. Will you be on the winning team? I'm Jordan Wilson, the host of the Everyday AI podcast, and your coach to help you learn the X's and O's of AI. Artificial intelligence isn't just a new player in the game, it's a new sport altogether. So if you don't quickly put AI into play, your competitors will run up the score. I've spent my whole life building winning teams, from coaching basketball to working with big players like Nike and Jordan Brand. My next move? Helping you win with Everyday AI. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or on everydayaipodcast.com. Let's tap into AI together and put points on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that, I told you I'm a geek on the subconscious. Your subconscious is what runs all that. It controls everything. You don't have to think about your breathing, heartbeat, body temperature, how much insulin you create after a meal, all that. And it also controls that healing process. And just to give you an idea of the power of the subconscious, the research has shown that, it can reprogram your DNA, literally. Dr. Bruce Lipton in Biology of Belief, and way back in the day, Dr. Bernie Siegel from Yale did some really fascinating research with multiple personality disorder, where he saw patients' eye color change. Physical markings, scars, and things would disappear and reappear depending on what personality was coming through. That's how powerful your subconscious is. We've all heard about the placebo effect, and it's been shown to have up to a 70% cure rate in clinical drug trials when patients are getting nothing but a sugar pill. Just the belief that they're getting something is usually, not usually, but a lot of times enough to to actually heal, whatever the malady is. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm just, astounded by how powerful the subconscious mind is. I remember, when I was sitting in a dark dungeon, if you've ever seen that movie, The Secret, somebody sent this to me, after I got my injury, but there was a guy who was in a plane crash. All he could do was blink his eyes. And that's the way he communicated. And he told the nurses that way, I'm going to walk out of here. And they're like, yeah, right. You're never getting out of this bed. He walked out of there. And it's just, he started just by breathing deep and, working the one thing that he could control, and just gradually expanded, baby steps, putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the incredible power you have at your disposal. It's just, that power can be negative and work against you, or you can harness it and really, do things that will astound you.
Sometimes I think it's mind over matter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
It is mind over matter. And as we end this fabulous interview, where could people find you? Where could people get a hold of you if they choose to do so?
Oh, sure. It's my website is Matt Johnson NLP. That's MattJohnson NLP. I help. I told you I healed my PTSD. I help people with mental emotional baggage, things like that. If anybody's got questions about brain injuries, things like that, I'm more than open to helping you out. When I'll send you those links to the document, to the presentation, so you can put those in the show notes if you like. And
yeah. And Matt, I know you have questions for me.
What would you say? What would you say has been a gift in your journey? And I know you have cerebral palsy. I've worked with people like, I've worked with dyslexics and things like that. I mean, some of the most famous people you can think of have been dyslexic, Da Vinci, Walt Disney, Richard Branson. If you've seen that Ray Charles movie, you know what I mean? He incredible music talent, probably because he was blind, you know what I mean? So, I mean, what has been, the superpower or the silver lining behind what you've gone through?
The superpower. People think that I will always have a negative attitude. Why me? Why do I have a disability? Why do I need a hip replacement? So on and so forth. But the truth is, I try my hardest to keep a positive attitude. Yes, it's pain some days, and other days it's perfectly fine. But I try my hardest to keep a positive attitude towards everything.
Yeah, that is so important, because that literally shapes your biochemistry. You know what I mean? It's when you've got negative emotions going on in your nervous system, your body literally becomes more acidic, and which makes you more brittle, basically, and breaks you down. So keeping that positive attitude is huge. I'm going to date myself here. I remember, back in the early 1980s, my parents got us one of those Atari 2600 video games, and it had a switch on it for novice versus expert mode. And if you put on expert mode, it made the game way harder for you in some way. I have the belief that life is kind of like that. Some of us come in here in expert mode, and I'm fascinated by it, and I have so much admiration for everybody who comes through life that way. I truly believe you're here to learn something special, or leave something special, and I applaud you for everything you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that now, and I'm coming to find out that my gift followed me down to Arizona. It's now following me into rehab in the hospital where I'm going to continue doing content. I just won't do it in the hospital per se because hospital Wi-Fi is icky.
Yeah.
But I really feel like my gift followed me, my job and my gift followed me down to Arizona.
I believe that. Absolutely. Yeah. I just, like I said, I admire what you're doing so much. You're an inspiration to a lot of people. You're showing what's possible.
Well, I appreciate that. And as we wrap this interview up, you guys, I hope you enjoyed another fabulous interview. And I certainly did. And if you want to reach out to Matt, please do. We'll have all that information in the show notes, plus his presentation that he did to the
San Diego Brain Injury Foundation.
San Diego Brain Injury Foundation, and that's awesome. And if you look up support groups for brain injuries, there's a ton of them, including probably here in Arizona. I know that the Bell's Neurological Clinic here in Phoenix has one. I just Google brain injury support groups, and because you're not alone in this journey, you're definitely not alone. And so if you want to reach out to Matt, please do. We'll have all his information in the show notes. And I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous interview. Thanks to you guys. Bye, you guys.